Strong bodies,
kind hearts,
unstoppable minds.
You're listening to Strong Girls Pod,
where strong women share their stories
to inspire strong girls.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Strong Girls Pod. I'm your host, Charlie Ekstrom, and we are here on episode 2 with Kikkan Randall. She is an Olympic skier. She's a gold medalist, but beyond that, she's an incredible human being, and we're so excited to have this conversation with her. So, Kikkan, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. Love being part of this squad.
It's awesome. We've got a pretty good little Strong Girls squad around, and it's fun that we get to highlight the people who make it all happen behind the scenes, and you're somebody who we're really excited to have in this conversation. So to start, I think that I gave you a little tiny bit of background, but your story is a little bit deeper than just you're an Olympic skier. Would you mind, to start here, giving us a little bit of your background and your story, kind of your career spanning through why you ended up choosing your sport? What was kind of your journey growing up? What did you study? What did you do? What you're doing now? All of it. Give us it all.
All right. Well, we'll be on here for the next couple hours. No, it's really fun at this point, being post of my competitive career and being able to look back and really think about all the little things that help make me an athlete and develop me as a person. And so my background started in Alaska. We moved from Salt Lake, where I was born, up to Alaska at age 3. So my whole memorable life was growing up in the mountains in a big outdoor playground. And I was born into an athletic family. On my mom's side, I have an aunt and uncle that went to the Olympics as cross-country skiers. So I grew up hearing their stories and definitely wanted to follow in their footsteps. Although I have to admit, I did not think cross-country skiing was going to be my sport at first. So I was determined to try many other things. And my dad's side of the family was also into all sorts of athletics, but he really got into alpine skiing after high school. And so he got me on alpine skis the day after my first birthday, and then was taking my brother and sister and I up to the mountains all the time. So I really thought I was going to be an alpine skier for a while. That was really my first Olympic ambitions. And so I did that kind of through 8th grade. Around that time, there were a couple of Alaskans that had won Olympic medals. And so it was really inspiring to have powerful role models coming from my hometown. And then in high school, I got really into running. I was playing soccer. And all my running friends were going to do cross-country skiing in the winter to stay in shape. And so I started to realize I kind of had to make a choice. And I didn't have time and resources to do both. So I ended up kind of swaying to cross-country. And then when my running coach moved out of town after my sophomore year, I joined a ski program. And within a couple of weeks, I realized that cross-country skiing was actually a pretty neat sport. It really combined a lot of elements that I loved from my other sports. I got to go fast downhill. I got to experience the pure payout of effort from running. And it still had a team component like soccer. And at that point, I also realized that the 2002 Olympics were just 3 years away. And being a little bit naive, I didn't fully understand what the development pipeline was like for cross country. But I set my goal on making that Olympic team. And a year after I graduated high school, I joined a pro team and I trained full time and ended up making those Olympics. And I didn't ski particularly well in Salt Lake. 44th was my best place. But it really inspired me watching the medal winners go up on the podium, in particular a skier from Canada named Becky Scott, who I'd gotten to know traveling on the circuit. And seeing them stand on the podium really inspired me to go after that someday, despite the fact that no American woman had ever been even top 10 at the Olympics. So again, setting big goals, not really understanding it. And so my coach sat me down and showed me the progression I would have to make year over year to actually make that a possibility. And the plan was going to be 10 years long. And I'm 19 years old, and it's very daunting. But at the same time, I realize while it's a big goal, I can do it in small pieces. And that ended up setting me on a 16-year journey through 5 Olympics. And in my very last Olympic race, I teamed up with Jessie Diggins, my good friend from Minnesota, and we ended up winning a gold medal in the Olympics. And I finished my career on the highest of high notes.
Heck yeah, you went out on top, which is the pretty much coolest thing ever. And also, as the first ever, you were saying no U.S. team no U.S. woman, no U.S. team had ever placed like top 10. And then you guys are the first ever to win a gold. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
Correct.
I was going to say, I'm pretty positive. This little birdie told me that you guys are kind of the trailblazers for the sport of cross-country skiing in the U.S., and you'd seen these Olympic greats coming. I think that's something that I actually loved hearing about. Is you were talking about this culture of greatness that was coming from the Alaskan skiing community. What do you feel like your foundation was to enable you to be able to do what you do? I know you talked about your family. What beyond that? I think that you're talking about all these awesome goals, and I'd love to kind of hear more about your process.
Yeah, absolutely. I think environment and your support team makes a huge difference. I mean, you can come out as the most strong-willed, independently motivated kid, but if you don't have the right environment to support you through the invariable highs and lows through sport, then that's what it all takes to ultimately make success. So growing up in Alaska, I tried a lot of things. I was good at some things, but I was not so great at some things. Like I tried snowboarding and I could not stand up to save my life. My mom was like in fits of laughter watching me because I was so determined I was going to get it. And, so I think it was really important to try some things that were challenging. I did all sorts of team sports, and I was never the fastest or best player on the soccer team, but I loved the camaraderie of it. And I think my parents had a rule that if I committed to something and then found out that I wasn't enjoying it, I needed to see it through the season because I'd made the commitment to the team and the coach. But after the season concluded, if I wanted to then move on and try something else, I was free to do so. And I think that was really important because I tried cross-country skiing at 6 years old. And if I'd been forced to do it and didn't like it, I don't think I would have ever been able to have the long career that I did. So I was able to dabble with it, go do something else for a while. I also think that I had some amazing coaches along the way who not only taught me how to be a good athlete and proper technique and things like that, but really talked about, the power of your mindset, being a growth mindset, really being able to learn from every experience, whether it goes really well or whether it doesn't, to how to be patient and persistent through some setbacks. All those things have ended up have been so crucial in athletics, but then have helped me navigate some of the non-athletic things in my life that have been challenging. And it was all really subtle stuff. Like they read stories to us. We had, cool mantras on the wall. So it wasn't like we were doing sports psychology at 10 years old, but all that stuff I was soaking up. And I think that really becomes critical later on. So I just, had an incredible environment.
That's really cool. I love the mantras on the wall from such an early age. I feel like that's something that I've started, something that my mom and I do is like our little trick that we do back and forth is we get each other shirts with mantras on them. And that's what we've been doing. Like I'm sitting here in a grateful everyday shirt because of the fact that every single day we try to do some sort of little mantra thing back and forth. So usually being like, there's positive mantras that were just kind of there that didn't necessarily force themselves upon us. Like this was just something that we started doing. We had a little poster in our house that said, see the good in all things, always. And then all of a sudden it just started becoming this pattern where we would be like, oh, that shirt's really cute. And so then it became kind of this little trend with us of where we're starting to wear our mantra shirts. And now I come home from breaks or come home and my mom's like, I got us matching grateful shirts and I'm laughing. I'm like, Mom, you're going to laugh. Look in my bag right now. And I have 2 matching shirts with positive mantras on them too. So I love that you're saying that even from an early age, kind of having those mantras, helped to develop this kind of growth mindset moving forward, even all the way through your career that spanned a nice casual 5 Olympics. I mean, I was sitting here just like, wow, eyes getting bigger with every mention of a new Olympics that you went to, hearing about it, which is so incredible and so cool. Do you think that came directly from your coaches, the growth mindset? I mean, you said with your parents as well, but that growth mindset, I feel like some people don't necessarily know where the growth mindset comes from, where it takes them. Do you think that came early from coaches? Do you think that came from parents, or kind of like a combo of both of them for you?
I think it comes from a really interesting combo. I think there are, innately patterns in the way you think that you're kind of born with. But those need to be developed. And so I think early on, my parents were great about just kind of instilling me, watching me come up against a challenge, struggle a little bit, and encouraging me not to just turn around and quit. One of our mantras in our family was Randall's never quit. And so it was just, early on, it was like you learn to just come into a challenge, lean into it a little bit, give it your best. And so that helped me develop the self-talk and lean into it. And then along with coaches as well. Being very, open and in partnership with my coaches, I think was important. Explaining what I was thinking and feeling in addition to the training I was doing was great, because then we could have productive conversations about things that we could learn, things that we could improve, and just not being like ashamed of having doubts, of being, scared of trying something. I think kind of owning that and talking about it helped me learn that was okay, and that was part of growth. And I have this one story that sticks out in my mind. I think I was 4 years old, and I was gonna jump off the diving board or dive off the diving board for the first time. And I stood up there and I was really afraid. I don't know if I could do it. And my dad was there talking me through it. And then he said, if you dive into the water, I'll give you a Reese's peanut butter cup. And suddenly that was like what I needed. And I dove in. I don't think it was a pretty dive, but I did it. And I got my Reese's peanut butter cup. And it's like those little things along the way really, really develop the mindset.
Totally. It's a little positive reinforcements for trying something new. I think that Reese's peanut butter cups are fully worth it for the dive. Those are absolutely incredible candies. So, I mean, I would probably agree that I think I would dive in for a Reese's peanut butter cup as well. Oh, that's so awesome. I love that story. That's so great. I think hearing about this, hearing how you're going through doubts, hearing how you're working with coaches and like setting goals that kind of embrace your doubts and growing with them, I would love to hear like a little bit more. For those who are avid Strong Girls listeners, I don't know if you've heard of Kikkan's goal setting talk that she did for us, but I would love to hear you kind of take us through a little brief process and idea of your goal setting mindset and process when you were going in as an athlete.
Well, it's something I learned to do over time, but what ended up serving me really well through athletics, and then something I actually used when I ended up going through cancer, was whether you're taking on a challenge or you're thinking about going after something big, you have to have that kind of lofty end result in mind. And so when it was the Olympics, it was like, wow, I want to win an Olympic medal, something no American woman has ever done before. So that was the big goal. But then my first Olympics, I'm 44th place. Like, how do I go from 44th to the top? So it was too big of a jump to try to see in one chunk. So with the help of my coach, because I think it was important to bring some other people in to help me build this roadmap, we kind of figured out like, okay, first, if we're going to get to that big goal, we're going to need some benchmarks. So what are those benchmarks? Well, one good thing was going to be other Olympics, which happen every 4 years. So I was in Salt Lake in 2002. So then in 4 years, how much did I want to improve? Well, if I could get to the top 20 in the next Olympics, then maybe top 10 the next Olympics after that, then I those are jumps that I can actually see happening over 4 years. So you take the big chunk and you break it down into a few kind of smaller benchmarks, and then you look at each benchmark and you figure out what could I actually do each day that gets me closer to achieving that. And so in skiing, that was things like, well, I need to be able to go faster uphill. So I need to focus my training around doing sprints uphill, or I need faster skis. So I need to find a way to, save up money and buy skis. So you can take each of those smaller goals and break it down. And now all of a sudden you have this nice little list of things you can work on every single day. And so you put that big goal out there somewhere, like the sticky on your mirror or the poster or something. So you're in the back of your mind, you're reminded what you're working for. But you're going out every day and you're working on goals that are challenging but attainable. And as you do those, you check them off. And it's amazing how days go by, weeks go by, years go by, and all of that is building this pyramid that's building up. And so for me in my fourth Olympics, that was 12 years after I had made that 10-year plan. So I'm a little bit past, but of course we have to work with Olympic timing. So I've been putting in the work day after day. I had been having some breakthroughs. I'd been moving forward, and then I had some years where I actually didn't achieve my goals, and I could kind of slip backwards. But everything was kind of progressing, and I came into those Olympics considered the gold medal favorite. And the coolest thing was being out at the course the day before the race and knowing in my heart that I had put in the work and that I had made myself into someone who could actually win an Olympic medal. So I made myself a promise that day that as long as I go out and I ski as hard as I possibly can, I don't let the doubts creep in. I just think about getting to that finish line as fast as I can. If I cross that line and I've given everything, then no matter what the result is, I can walk away satisfied. So I took it away from I have to win a medal to I want to know that I gave my best effort. And so I went out that day and I skied my heart out, and I ended up losing a photo finish by 0.05 of a second, and I actually got eliminated in the quarterfinals. To get to the gold, you had to do quarters, semis, and finals. And so, I gave everything, and I didn't quite get my goal of winning an Olympic medal in that games. But as I was walking out of the finish area, I remembered that promise I made to myself, and I could feel really good that I had prepared, that I was confident, that I took risks. I believed in myself. And you know what? I didn't get a gold, but that's okay. And I think now that was almost 10 years ago, I can look back at that day and go, yeah, a medal would have been really cool. But knowing that I did everything I could, and that I had followed my plan and it had actually put me in a position to win that medal, I think means more than anything. And I know when I was a kid, I didn't fully understand that. It was all about the result, about the goal. You had to get it, and if you didn't get it, you felt like a failure. But it's really about the effort you give, and that's something that someone can never take away from you, and that's what will, I think, linger with you for the rest of your life. So to all the listeners out there, the more you can set your goals, and those are important, but also when you get to that point and you either make it or don't, know that it's really about all the work that went into it, and no matter what, if you put the work in, that's the gold medal in my mind.
It's all about the little checks on that to-do list, like little by little. And once those little checks are checked off, the last piece becomes, I don't know, like the grounding point, it seems like a little bit of, regardless of what the result is of this. Like I've checked off my goals. I've achieved so much more than just this little point now. It's become so much bigger than just that star on the mirror. It's become this whole thing that I've been able to accomplish. I'm getting goosebumps just hearing this story of, I feel like that's such an inspiring reward of going out there knowing in your heart that you did everything that you could. You ticked off every box that you could to prepare yourself. And even if that result didn't come, like that feeling still did, because you did everything you could to get that result. And it may not have come then, but it could have gone the other way. You could have won that by that 0.05 of a second. It just wasn't your year that year. And then it was your year in the next one. Would you take me through kind of that process of after that feeling of like knowing that you had done everything you could and knowing that you had worked your tail off to get through all of those check marks on the list? What was that motivation going into your 5th Olympics? What was it like? Kind of, how was the journey different? How was it the same?
It was quite a process for me. That's when you have to get really good about kind of your self-talk, because after an experience like that, when you are feeling a little disappointed, and it's okay to be disappointed because you put everything into that. But as you kind of sit with the disappointment, you can take that conversation and you can start to pick it apart and kind of realize what was in your control and maybe what was out of your control, and then figure out what you want to do with it going forward. And so the interesting situation that I was in is that in my sport, cross-country skiing, we have 2 techniques. We have skate skiing and we have classic skiing. And we have short events called the sprint and long events. I happen to be good at skate sprints, which is 1 out of 6 events that they do at the Olympics. And the sprint flip-flops techniques each games, which means you only get to do a skate sprint once every 8 years instead of once every 4 years. So not winning a medal in Sochi in 2014 meant that if I wanted to go after the individual skate sprint, I was going to have to wait 8 more years. And at this point, I'm pretty deep into my career. So at first I was like, well, shoot, like that was my chance. But at the next Olympics 4 years later, there was going to be a team event called the team sprint. It was going to be a 2-person relay. It was going to be in the skate technique. And I knew we had a really strong team. There's also a second relay event that's for women. And I really wanted to be on that team. So what's interesting is it switched from being an individual goal of wanting to win a medal to wanting to help my team win medals. So that's what really kept me going for another 4 years. Plus, now I had just put all the work in and it was getting fun. Like I had turned myself into one of the best athletes in the world. I didn't win that Olympic race, but the next week I won the next World Cup, and I ended up winning this thing called the Crystal Globe at the end of the season for being the fastest racer all season. So outside of that one day, it was a very successful season. And so then it was fun to come back the next couple years and every weekend contest with the best athletes in the world. So I wonder actually if not winning a medal in 2014 was a little bit of a gift, because it left me hungry. It left me hungry to work with my teammates to try to put ourselves in a position to win medals in the next games.
I love that. I feel like too, thinking about it in the perspective of like going from a very individual mindset, going into a team mindset, that's a fun shift, or in my head, that's a fun shift. I don't know if it was as fun of a shift, but I'd love to kind of hear the difference. You said it really well there. Of your mindset shifted of I want to do this, I want to win a medal, to I want to help my team win a medal. What was that process like? Because I feel like you went from a very individually focused sport to like now this introduction of team. How did that change the sport in general? And how did you create a team culture in a sport that's so by nature completely individual? Like how did you work to create a team culture from something that was so individual before?
Well, I have to admit that it was a process that had begun far before those Olympics. In high school, I was a part of a cross-country running and a cross-country ski team that was very team-oriented. Our coach really encouraged us to celebrate the team trying to win the team championship as much as our individuals. And you know what? It was the funnest team to be a part of. We went out there and we pushed each other and we worked so hard and we had so much fun, kind of being silly, but we ended up winning 3 state titles in cross-country running.
Casual.
And so when I got into my more Olympic or U.S. ski team, I naturally wanted that team environment. But when I first made it to the World Cup, I was the only U.S. woman on the team. And so I realized I don't think I'm going to be as successful as I want to be by myself. And I'm spending a lot of my life committed to doing this, and I don't want to do it by myself. Plus, there are relay medals on the table that we should be going after. So I went around and I started encouraging my U.S. competitors to join up with me and to work together at U.S. ski team training camps, and invited people to come to Alaska and train. And we started to get this group that started to come together. And then we had another coach who stepped in and really challenged us to not only work together on the snow, but to really become supportive teammates off the snow. He said, we're kind of like a family, in that you don't get to necessarily choose your siblings, but somehow you end up learning each other and you learn how to operate as a team, and then you know they've got your back, and again, you can have a lot of fun. So that started to turn into music videos and relay socks, and because the U.S. team, we lived together for 5 months of the year. We would go over to Europe and be racing the circuit to a new country every week. So you spent a lot of time with your teammates, and so if you could have fun and get to know them really well, then it just made it that much better. So that team was starting to build up through 2014, and we had actually we'd had a World Cup podium in the relay. Jesse Diggins and I had won the World Championships in the team sprint in 2013, just the year before. So I still had the team goals, but of course that drive to win the Olympic gold medal in the skate sprint individually was my big thing. So what was cool is, because we'd already built that foundation of team, then over the next 4 years, we just spent a lot of time talking about what we wanted to accomplish as a team in 2018. And we realized that because the level of U.S. skiing had been rising so much, that we would likely have more women going to the Olympics in 2018 than could actually fit on the relays. So they were going to have to select which 4 of us or which 2 of us out of about 8 or 10 women would be on the team, meaning some would be on the team and some would be on the sidelines. And we knew that everybody wanted to be on those teams, but we talked a lot about how, because we were all working together for 4 years, any success we had, everybody was a part of it. And so we come into the 2018 games, and I had kind of been the fastest or the team leader in 2014, but by 2018, all my teammates were just as fast as me. And I developed an injury in my foot about a month and a half before the Olympics. And so I had to change my training. I was aqua jogging in the pool while all my teammates were racing, and I was kind of freaking out that I was not going to make the Olympic team or be on the relays. So that was where like the mindset really came in handy. I just had to remind myself to like literally do what I could every day and just stay hopeful that I was going to recover from the injury in time. And so we come into the 2018 games, and my foot is healed up enough. And so I get a start in the first individual race, and it doesn't go that well, but the end of the race is okay. And so then when they announced the 4x5K relay, I get a spot. And so I'm just like beyond the moon because I get to be on the team. We ended up finishing 5th, so we didn't get a medal, but it was the best relay result we'd ever had. And then it was down to the team sprint, which is only a 2-person event. And so 36 hours before the race, they still had not announced which 2 of us it was going to be. So 2 nights before the race, I'm sitting in my room in the athlete village with my teammate Sadie Bjornsson from Alaska. And the coach walks in, and you can just kind of tell by the look on his face that they have made their decision. So he goes through this like 10-minute monologue about how they've like analyzed all these statistics and thought about it, because they wanted to be like so fair and so right. So at the end of this like drawn out thing, he tells us that they've chosen me to race with Jessie. So I am getting the best news because I get to go out and race for my team one more time. It's the team sprint, what we've been looking forward to. But at the same time, my teammate sitting next to me just got the news that she is not going to be on the team. And I cannot even imagine what that felt like for her at the time. But her first reaction was to look me dead in the eyes and tell me she believed in me and that she wanted to help. And that was the most amazing show of team spirit I have ever witnessed. And so the next day, Sadie and the rest of our team, we all went out. We did a workout on the course together. The morning of the race, we all went out for a team jog in the athlete village, and we did our team dance. And it's just, we felt so supported that whole day by our team, so that when Jessie and I were on the snow that night, we knew we had everyone behind us. And when that gold medal happened, when Jessie crossed the finish line 0.19 of a second ahead of Sweden, we jumped up, and right away all the women of the team were right there, and we just went over and had this big hug, and we all got to celebrate it together. And I wish they gave us 8 gold medals, because that's really what it took to win it, and all those women played a part in it. And what's so cool is we've all remained really close friends. Like, even though I've been retired like 5 years now, Sadie retired a couple years ago. Like, Sadie lives half a mile from my house, and I see her almost every day. Like, we're just the great friends. And a moment like that, handled the wrong way, could have absolutely destroyed it. But she was such a class person, and like I said, I mean, that team. And I think, had we not won a medal at those games, we would have all still walked away feeling just so good about our journey. But yeah, we got a gold medal to celebrate it.
That's not too shabby on the end note there. Wow. I'm trying to not cry. That story is so beautiful. I have full tears in my eyes. That's such a special moment, coming from building something so big. Really, you 8 were kind of like the trailblazers for that, of turning this individual sport into a team sport. I do need to hear about these relay socks that you mentioned at the start of the story. What did they look like? Were they just magic? Were they matching? I need to hear about the relay socks.
Well, it's a really fun story, because we were in the middle of this race series called the Tour de Ski. It's kind of like the Tour de France, in that you race like every single day, and every couple of days you're like moving to a new country. And so we're in the middle of this. We're driving from one venue to the next, and our coach accidentally puts unleaded fuel in a diesel tank. So now we've got to like sit in this town and we've got to go get the like tank pumped out. So my teammates and I were just kind of like kicking around, killing time. And I walk into this like convenience store in Germany, and it's so random. Like there's like all different things in there. And I happen to notice these socks that are part of a Pippi Longstocking costume. And they're one sock is red and white striped, and the other sock is blue and white striped. And so I just kind of saw those and I went, oh, those look fun. So I grabbed 4 pairs, and then right next to it there was this pair of pink sequined suspenders. So I was like, those look good too. So I grabbed those. And so at the end of the Tour de Ski, we jump in this fun like team sprint like relay, and my friend Liz and I wear the socks, and we win the race. And I mean, it's just like a silly, like just fun thing, whatever. So then that's the 2012 season, I think. So then the next year at the World Championships in 2013, we had just started pulling out the socks for relays. So it's 2013, it's the World Championship team sprint. Jesse and I win gold. We're wearing the socks. So then all of a sudden it's like, I think there's something to this. So these socks start to just become the thing. It's like the four people that are on the relay get to wear the socks, and then the suspenders became like the thing that either someone got to wear on their birthday, or they got to wear them cheering on the sidelines for the relay. And so these socks like totally became a thing. And those, I mean, they were like the cheapest thing ever. I mean, they're just like costume socks, but we wore those all the way through the 2018 Olympics. I think now they've since found some replacements because like they were getting holes in them and stuff.
Fair.
But literally like the day of that Pyeongchang skate sprint, I'm like going back and finding pictures from 2013 when we won the gold, because I'm going, okay, did I have the blue sock on my left leg or my right leg? Because whatever it was, that worked. So we got to do that again.
Yeah, like we're repeating it. We have to repeat this. This is the socks. They're magic socks. That's amazing.
Yeah. So what was so cool is that like we'd been doing face paint. We were one of like the first teams to do it. Like all the other European teams were super serious. So we did the face paint. We have the relay socks. And all of a sudden you started to see other teams start to kind of catch on, like, whoa, these Americans are racing really fast. It must be the socks. So you started to see like teams back in the US putting on the socks. Now the men's team races in the socks as well. It's been quite a phenomenon.
Oh my gosh, I love it. As an avid fan of socks, I did my 5th year at Stanford. I had fun sock 5th year is what I called it. I had a pair of fun socks for every single day of lift. Being a barefoot sport, it was a little bit tough to be able to like actually exercise my fun sock 5th year rights, but I was the only 5th year on the team, so I had to do it. So my strength coach, like I walked into the first day of lift, he's like, what are you wearing right now? I was like, they're Lucky Charms socks. It's fun sock 5th year. Come on. He goes, do you have a pair of socks for every day of the week? I said, I have 16 pairs of fun socks, and I will be wearing them on rotation. Thank you very much. And then he would rate my socks by the end of, like with each time. He's like, these ones aren't as fun. He goes, I said, but in the category of what is a plain white or black sock, these are more fun than that. He goes, yes, agreed, but they're not as fun as your other ones. And I was like, okay, let's give a ranking system of where the socks are. So I was like, I hear the relay socks. I was like, this is incredible. I need to know the sock story. Oh my gosh.
It's amazing how little things like that, they can either, just be that little positive reminder that you need that while this is intense and you have big goals and you're working really hard and you're throwing your whole life into this, at the end of the day, you do this because it's fun. And if you can bring that kind of lightness to it, I think that helps you be more successful.
Totally. Finding the joy in the strain and the stress of sport is kind of like the most beautiful piece of it. I feel like it's why a lot of us athletes do what we do, but sometimes it's hard to find it. Definitely in the more strenuous moments. Also, I have to ask too, with cross-country skiing, I tried running. I can't say that I've ever been a huge runner. I really want to, in theory, be a runner, but every time I try, I don't get the runner's high. I get the nice little, I want to stop this mindset. But I'm slowly getting better. I'm slowly able to work up my mileage. But I have to know, like, there's a huge piece of your sport in cross-country skiing and cross-country anything in general of, like, this aspect of pain in sport. I know that you're talking about like bringing the fun moments in. Did that have any assistance, or kind of how do you work with the idea of like your sport brings like pain in it? There's like some pain that comes with sport. That's at a greater rate than other sports. There's a lot of us who like once the adrenaline hits, there's no more pain. Just when you get off the court, your joints start to hurt. But there's a huge aspect of pain that comes into cross country. How do you like prepare? Like what's your mindset going in? How do you prepare for a competition knowing that your competition actually will be painful innately?
It's a great question, and something that I have to laugh when I have to talk to people about cross country skiing, and I often get the question like, why would anyone do that? I mean, the image people often see is us crossing the finish line and like literally laying on the ground with the chest heaving, and which I'll tell you is quite painful, but the best feeling in the world.
Oh yeah.
And so I think cross country skiing it's one of the most cardiovascularly demanding sports in the world, because you're using your entire body. You're using your legs, you're using your arms, you're using your core. It's endurance based, but it's power based, and particularly as the events have gotten a little bit more shorter and the equipment's gotten stiffer, now you actually have to produce more power, which creates more lactic acid, which can make it even more painful sometimes. But that's the reason why we train and prepare. Our training season would start May 1st, and we would be training all the way up until mid-November when our first races were starting. And we really continued to race or to train kind of through those first couple of months of racing, because we know every day we train, it's like putting money in the bank. So then when you go to race, you have a lot to draw from. And because you've been kind of touching that discomfort zone almost every day, it's amazing how you can get comfortable with the discomfort. And so we would do a lot of interval training. So we would simulate the pace and the feeling that we would encounter in racing. Sometimes we would push above and beyond that. And it's amazing how as your body physically adapts to that, it actually learns how to transport oxygen more efficiently. Your muscles get snappier and stronger. And you can sit in that zone where you're very uncomfortable, but you're used to it. And that's where the self-talk becomes very important, because you get into that zone and one part of your brain is starting to say, whoa, this feels hard, what are you doing? And the other part just kind of calmly says like, yeah, but I've been here and I've done this, and I can do it. And I know if I do it, then I'm going to get the result that I want. I'm going to get that endorphin high, that rush for putting myself in this challenging situation. And so I think it's just something that you kind of develop over time. And I really think it's a nice marriage of your physical conditioning and your mental preparation that makes it possible. Like the best races are physical agony, biggest thing I've ever experienced, but yet you're able to just kind of comfortably sit with it and push through it. And then it is the best release when you cross that finish line, knowing that you've given everything. And now that I don't train and race all the time, I miss it. Like my life is comfortable now, right? I don't have to go out and make myself hurt, but I miss it because I don't get the exhilaration from it. I don't feel physically as agile and strong as I was. And so it's reminding me that I need to build some of that stuff back in, because that's what makes me feel alive as a person.
Oh, I love that. I feel like this is a very nice little pivot point. Something that we do with Strong Girls is trying to incorporate more mindset practices in with all of our girls. And a huge piece of that is we talk about every single day, write down 3 good things that happened. What are 3 good things that happened in your day? Because then it can shift a day that might have been a little bit crummy into something that's significantly more positive, because you had at least 3 good things that happened. And so on the note of our 3 good things mindset practice, I would love to know your 3 favorite things about your sport specifically.
That's a great question. I wholeheartedly believe in that practice. That was something that I would write in my training log after a race. I had to start with 3 things that went well, and then I could write 3 things that I wanted to improve. But it was very important how you framed it. And it was amazing how it was really easy to come up with 3 things that I wanted to improve, but harder to come up with the 3 things sometimes of the things that went well. So in my sport, I think some of the things that I loved doing was on steep uphills, there's this technique we call jump skating. And so you're literally like jumping from foot to foot up the hill. It's very energy demanding, but man, you can fly up and over a hill so fast. And that was always my strength in sprint racing. And so there were a few races when I put my head down basically and just jump skated up the hill as hard as I could, and was almost like so in my zone I didn't know what was going on around me. But then going back and seeing the footage later, those were moments when I broke away from the pack, because I think people come into a hill and their immediate reaction is, this is hard, I got to kind of pace myself, I got to conserve. And it was always a little bit risky to burn so much energy in those situations. But then because I was willing to take the risk, I got the advantage. And there were times when that didn't work, but the times that it did were amazing. It was like I took the risk, and it really paid off. So that jump skating up a hill is a really cool feeling. You feel like you're a little bit like you're just flying up the hill. So that's a favorite. I also loved getting really strong in the weight room, and it was like, a progression over time. I would say I felt a difference was always like in these 3-week blocks. Like the first week it would be hard, and then the second week it's like, okay, I'm starting to get this, and by the third week you're like, okay, I'm handling this, I'm ready to jump up to the next. And towards like the end of my career, I could do pull-ups with 55 pounds hanging from my waist. And so I'd be in a weight room like in the New York City, on like a sponsor trip, and I'd go in there and I'd find the weight and I'd put it around my waist and I'd go do a couple pull-ups with this, and then I'd walk away, and then I'd like see some guys coming over like trying to do it. And so that was kind of a cool benefit of the sport, was just getting so strong. So I love that part of it. And then the third, and by far my most favorite, was being out on these workouts with my friends. Just like, we're flying along, we're pushing each other, and yet we're just talking and jumping and being silly. And I just that's what sticks in my mind when I think back about my career, is all the time I got to spend with my teammates and the friends that I made also, like from other countries. Like some of my best friends are, one's from Sweden, one's from Finland. They were my, fierce competitors, one from Canada. And yet we are great friends because we're all similar people. We just happen to compete sometimes. And so that is definitely my favorite part.
On course, you're the fiercest of enemies, but off the course, it's like, okay, great job, hugs, like at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Yes, I think that's one of my favorite pieces of being an athlete, is like you're all so like-minded. It's so tough to find that separation in moments too, of where you're like, I just want to beat them so badly, but then off the court, dang, I love this human being. Like that was, especially I feel like through my career, that's been a huge piece of it. I had people tell me, they're like, why are you hugging this girl after the game is over? You just played her in a game and you're giving her a big hug. I was like, that's my best friend across the net. Of course I'm going to give her a hug after the game. That was one of my favorite pieces of sport as well. I love it. I feel like going into that and all of this, the pieces of sport, we've kind of talked a lot about what makes you you. And then I literally have one more main question in all of it. And you've touched on it piece by piece, but you've been a huge leader in sport. And I would love to know kind of leadership opportunities, how they've changed your perspective. I mean, you kind of working to build that U.S. women's team. What was it like kind of entering as a leader? How do you think it benefited you in sport? And then how do you think it's hopefully benefited the sport for the years to come now that you're removed?
It has absolutely benefited me. So what was interesting is when I first made the World Cup team, like I said, I was the only U.S. woman, and I started to have success. I won my first World Cup, and then I won my first World Championship medal. And, I was excited. The U.S. ski team was excited. So by that point, I was becoming kind of more of a veteran athlete. I was understanding what I needed to be successful. And it would have actually been easier if I had just stayed focused on myself, because I could have dictated exactly where I wanted to do training camps, what kind of training I wanted to do. But I kind of knew deep down that it was going to be more fun and it was going to be more productive to have teammates to do it with, because I'm sitting in hotel rooms for months at a time in Europe, and I don't want to do that by myself. So when I started to reach out to my competitors to come in together for training, that meant I had to make compromises. I was living in Alaska, but maybe I had to fly down to Park City, Utah, where the U.S. ski team headquarters are, to meet up with my teammates. Maybe I had to fly to New Zealand to ski in the Southern Hemisphere, winter time. So I had to make compromises, and so did they, but I think we all benefited because of it. And so that was, I would think, a kind of a leadership choice, because I could have focused on just what I wanted and hoped that everybody else followed suit. Or I could be willing to say, hey, look, there's opportunities to learn and to do things different ways, and being open to that. So I think that was an important conscious choice that I made, that I'm so glad I did, because I think it would have been pretty lonely otherwise. The other leadership opportunities, I think, came from being very curious about how the sport works and how to make it better. Like, I've always kind of wanted to figure out, like, how can we do things better? How can we showcase our team? And I ended up taking an opportunity. I put my name forward to be elected as an athlete representative to our international governing body, which is what they call FIS. And that was a bit risky, because it meant I was going to have to fly over to Europe in June to go to meetings, when I should have, normally I'd be going to training, focusing totally on training. But here I was going to get on a plane, fly halfway across the world to sit in meetings for a couple of days. But in doing so, I was going to get to represent the voice of the athletes, to make sure that they were an important part of the decisions that were being made. So I put my name forward, and my fellow athletes elected me for that position. And I would fly over to those meetings, and I would sit there. And it was so cool, because I got to learn about how the sport actually works. It turns out, athletes are one piece of it, and a very important piece, but there's teams, there's sponsors, there's local organizers that all work together to make our sports possible. And so being a part of that decision-making process and understanding it really gave me a lot of gratitude for the sport that I got to do, because all these people believed in it and were making it happen. And so then I was less likely to complain about little things that weren't perfect, because I realized that too is a compromise to make it all work. But then it was also really cool to be able to come in and speak about the athlete's perspective, and we were able to make some big changes that benefited athletes. And then because I was in that position, then I got to go out and meet other athletes and talk about how, what their feedback was, how they were thinking and feeling. And in doing so, I ended up making some more friends. And since I flew over for the meetings, well, I'm over here in Europe, I might as well go train somewhere. So I went up to Norway and trained, I went to Sweden and trained, and I think those experiences wouldn't have happened had I not taken the risk of going for this position. And so being a leader off the snow and representing the athletes, I ultimately ended up getting elected in Pyeongchang as the athlete representative to the International Olympic Committee as well. So I got to work with other athletes in the International Olympic Committee to represent athletes worldwide. And that was incredible. But again, it took a risk of putting my name out there, of doing it, of flying to meetings all over the world. But it's been so cool to be a part of actually how sports work.
Oh, that's so cool. Getting the behind the scenes along with being in the scenes itself. It's such a fun aspect. Oh, thank you so much for having this conversation. Also, I feel like I need to say thank you like 100 more times, because not only are you benefiting like everybody listening, but I'm getting to learn so much from this whole process. I think that my whole goal setting mindset is shifted just from this conversation. I'm so excited to keep working on my little to-do lists now. So the last thing that I have here is something that we're doing with Strong Girls is, a little bit through working and just kind of being present, that our motto is strong bodies, kind hearts, and unstoppable minds with Strong Girls. And something that we're doing with all of the athletes that we're talking to here is we're following the pillars of our nonprofit, asking just kind of how you guys follow that. So to start, how do you keep your body strong?
I keep my body strong by taking care of it every day. I think it's not about the gargantuan big things that you do. I think it's about the daily habits. And that is, it's the physical aspect of moving your body, of challenging your body. And then the other part of that is all the little things, getting enough sleep, trying your best with nutrition. And I don't think you have to do everything perfect every day, but if you do give it your best and you consistently get in stuff over time, that's how you create an incredibly strong body.
I love it. Now, next up, how do you keep your heart kind?
I think keeping the heart kind can actually be one of the more challenging things. It's easy to go out and run up a hill as hard as you can, but days when you're feeling kind of down on yourself, that's when what I try to do is if I feel myself starting to get a little negative, starting to doubt myself, I just literally stop and take a deep breath, and I try to slow down the conversation in my mind, and I start to be curious about it, and I look at each thing that my mind is saying or focusing on, and I go, can I control that, or can I not? Did I approach something with the right intent and I just didn't get it right, or was I not true to my values? And I think when you start to slow down, you take all these things that your mind wants to say, but when you break it down, you realize that's not actually true. When you focus on the things you can control, and when you approach things with the right intent and you stay true to your values, then I think it always gives you a clear path forward, and you can feel really good about your heart and yourself.
Oh, yes. So beautiful. Oh my goodness. And I think then last but definitely not the least on this list of how do you keep your mind unstoppable?
I think keeping the mind unstoppable is just, I remind myself to never settle. Because I think it can be easy when you've accomplished something big, because you're feeling pretty proud about that, but you kind of realize like it really wasn't about the actual thing. It was about the quest for the goal. It was about trying to get through a challenge. And so once you've reached one benchmark, then you just kind of, take one breath in to pat yourself on the back that you made it through, but then you think about the next thing. And one exercise I try to do is I try to think a little ways into the future and go, what do I want my life to look like a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Like, I'm going to envision, like my perfect day. Where am I at? Who am I with? What am I doing? And then I start to kind of build back from that and go, okay, what can I do now that's going to make that vision a reality? And I think constantly, challenging ourselves to dream about the life that we want to have, and then doing the little things every day that we can. I think that keeps our mind unstoppable, because we kind of know where we're going, we know what we're working for, and we're confident that we're getting there every day.
Ah, that's beautiful. Oh, Kikkan, thank you so much for coming on and talking. I know it's so early for you right now. For people who are listening, it's completely black in the windows behind her because it is before the sunrise in Alaska right now. So thank you for taking the time this lovely morning, for sitting in and chatting with me and really getting to show us just who you are and all the pieces that make you you.
Well, my pleasure. I mean, I know I've always gained a lot of inspiration from hearing about how people approach their goals and all the things they do. And through some of the work I've done working with female athletes, I know that the power role model is super important. So, it's great to be able to share my story, and I hope that everybody, has found something in there they can relate to and is feeling empowered to go out, because, man, the possibilities are limitless.
Even if it comes down to just wearing sequin suspenders to have some fun in the moment.
Exactly. That's what it's all about.
Yes, all about it. Oh, well, for all of our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host, Charlie Ekstrom, and we are signing off. Thank you for taking the time to join us today on Strong Girls Pod. In the spirit of growing community and inspiring strong girls and women everywhere, please subscribe, rate, and leave a comment about our podcast. Tell your friends, family, really everyone to listen in and enjoy. This podcast is sponsored by Strong Girls United, a nonprofit with a mission to empower girls to be strong, confident, and resilient through sports mentorship and mental health programming. Visit sgunitedfoundation.org to learn more on how you can get involved today.